What did you always assume was normal until you found out it wasn't? To only take about a minute to poop, including wiping. IDK, what the duck people do that takes them so long. Some people like the peace and solitude of a nice dump. I call it Western meditation. I just don't get it. Jerking off and Redditing is my peace and solitude. I could never relate to sitting over your own shit for 40 minutes, but it seems like almost everybody does this. Jerking off and Redditing is my peace and solitude, both of which can be accomplished on the toilet. After a dump of any real significance, I find that it takes the butthole at least a couple of minutes to sort of depucker, and if I wipe and go without waiting those additional minutes on the pot, it's uncomfortable for a time. Finally, someone who understands. When I tell people I like to wait for my butthole to feel normal again, they just look at me funny. Maybe the people in the supermarket queue just don't want to hear it. That stuff gets blurrier the further away it is. It seemed to make sense. It's further away, so I can't see it as well. It wasn't until I was 18 and sitting in the back of massive lecture halls when I noticed that the people sitting next to me could read the board just fine that I realized I needed glasses. I can still envision the look on the optometrist's face when I, a 22-year-old who had no problems functioning in society, no restriction on my driving license, immediately upon putting on a pair of test lenses, exclaimed in shock, "Holy crap, I can see individual leaves." My vision was perfect when I was younger, but I guess I didn't notice the gradual degradation. Of course I can't tell the blades of grass apart, they're 2 meters away. But it was like suddenly switching a YouTube video from 720p to 1080p. The 720p wasn't bad, but the sudden sharpness is still surprising. Yes. When I first got my glasses and looked at the trees across the street, I said something along the lines of, "It's like seeing in HD," and then I felt like an idiot, because that's just how everyone else sees all the time. When I first started dating, I didn't know you were only supposed to have one girlfriend at a time, so I invited both my girlfriends to the same skating rink one night and left having 0 girlfriends. That's amusing and kinda adorable. Maybe TMI, but after I pee, I always wipe my dick with toilet paper. I found out a few days ago that nobody else does that. What? I do that too. Dude, it prevents residual spillage in your underwear. This is a trend that should catch on. I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years now. No regrets. I've been doing this forever. Who'd want pus residue on their dick when getting a surprise blowjob? What do you do at urinals? He walks with his duck out to the counter and grabs paper towel while everyone looks at him in awe. Alpha's duck. I'll have simulated conversations with people in my head if I'm expecting to talk with them soon. If it is an important conversation, like an interview, I'll do it somewhat obsessively, but even if it's just a routine work meeting or meeting an old friend, I'll practice things I'm going to say and what they would say and how the whole conversation might go. I assumed everyone did this until one time I mentioned something about it and got a weird look. Then I explicitly asked a few people and they all told me that was kind of weird and insinuated it was borderline schizophrenic. But it's not like I actually think I'm hearing voices with their own agency. I'm fully conscious that I'm simulating the conversation. And it's also not like overt practice. I never am like, I should practice that important conversation. It rather just kind of happens, probably because of some latent anxiety. My maternal grandparents had a small extra room in which they'd hung hundreds of photos of their children and grandchildren. My paternal grandparents didn't, but nevertheless I was fully convinced it was normal for old people to have a photo room. So when we were designing house maps for a primary school project, and I designed a map for a house that would be suitable for the elderly, I added a photo room. No one knew what that was. That I can blow air out the corners of my eyes, the ones closest to the nose. I just hold my nose shut and blow hard, and it leaks out of my eyes. It tickles, and if I do it underwater it makes little streams of bubbles that freak people out. I can also lick my elbow. You're actually blowing air up your tear ducts. When your eyes water, or you cry, your nose gets all runny too, right? That's tears coming down your tear ducts and exiting out in your nasal cavity. So blowing air up is basically the reverse of that. I thought it was so weird when I heard one of my elementary school friends tell their mother to shut up and no one smacked him. I thought it was even stranger that none of my friends got spankings. I was just like, how do they punish you? Smacking probably isn't the norm, but telling your mom to shut up without being punished is definitely weird. I found it strange that no one else of my friends lived in fear of their parents and always assumed they just don't want me to know. I was at a friend's house when her parents got in a fight. I was shocked she wasn't terrified. She said, "They're mad at each other, not me." That's when I realized something was seriously wrong at my house. Folding the toilet paper when wiping. I thought everyone folded. It's the logical thing to do to get the most coverage. Apparently there are barbarians that scrunchy toilet paper into a bowl and wipe. That seems like chaos to me. How do you know you won't miss? Scrunching is too risky. WTF. Then you can't fold the paper over itself after wiping. Savages. I lived on Guam for a few years when I was a kid, and it's the furthest back I can remember. Well, on a tropical island, in crappy base housing, it is prudent to keep things like cereal in the fridge, unless you like to pour a bowl of Bugs Geckos for yourself each morning. 4 years after moving off island we kept doing it out of habit, and it was a long time before I realized it was not something everyone did. I just thought cereal was something you kept in the fridge, the way you did milk and eggs. I come from a different island, and lot of my family will empty their cereals, rice, sugars, and pretty much any granulated open thing into mason jars to prevent moths, flies, other critters from getting to them. Do you guys put other granulated things in the fridge or just cereal? I can't imagine finding a gecko in my cereal. I'd name him Captain Crunch and he'd be my best friend. Growing up in Belfast, having soldiers on the streets, until I went on a school trip to London and thought, where's all the soldiers? It was strange not seeing any. Waking up every hour during the night. I was 21 when I found out that people fell asleep at night and didn't wake up once until morning. The thought of that terrifies me. Edit. I've been to doctors. None have ever suggested I need a sleep study, but I have had sleeping pills before. I have full energy most of the day, exercise well, maybe eat a bit too much sugar, but who's perfect? I dream, lots. I can lucid dream easily. If I put a lot of effort into my pre-bedtime routine I can sleep more, but that's more hassle than what it's worth. I'm not complaining about my sleep patterns, it's perfectly normal to me. I love waking up in the middle of the night and discovering I have a few more hours of sleep left. People apparently start the shower before they get into it. Every morning until a couple years ago I would stand there and just take the first burst of cold water until it warmed up. You are more of a man than anyone I know. As kids my sisters and I were trained to my parents whistling. Kind of Von Trapp style without the military undertones. Things like dinner's ready or it's time to go. It was only when I was talking to people at uni that I realized it wasn't normal. This is so genius. I'm friends with a family of 11 special needs kids, ranging from Downs to FASD to missing limbs, and their parents have a whole code of whistles and signals. Their lives are hectic because of the amount and intensity of the kids, but they have the signals down pat. I have a birthmark on one of my pinky fingers. For most of my childhood I thought they were called pinky fingers because everyone had a pink one like me. This is so adorable. Wearing my wristwatch on my dominant hand. There's your problem. It's supposed to go on your wrist, not your hand, you silly goose. I've never actually had a real sense of smell. Someone will fart and everyone would flip out, but I wouldn't notice. I got blamed so much. Can you taste farts? My audio movement synesthesia. I was 18 before I realized not everyone heard noise for every movement in their vision. Hell, even the scientific community didn't acknowledge it until about a decade ago. I have the timeline version of synesthesia. I can see time. It's the hardest thing in the world to explain, and it was years before I even found out it was a form of synesthesia. I was trying to find out what someone else's ear looked like. My ears are a funny looping shape, and he was so puzzled. Pooping a couple times a week. I had no idea you were supposed to go every day. Anything from twice a week to thrice a day is normal, as long as it comes out easily enough, doesn't give you cramps or bloats, has a firm, but not hard consistency and doesn't have blood in or on it. I thought everyone wiped sitting down. Then in a thread similar to this, I found out a whole other side of standing wipers exists. I thought the sitting wipe was the norm. I had no idea people stand up to wipe, and I still don't quite understand the mechanics of it. Wait, what? People stand to wipe? What if it was a messy poop? What keeps shit from running down their leg? Jesus, what kind of shits do you have? Holy shuts. I'm sorry. Tinnitus. Always thought that when everything was silent everyone heard the same high-pitched ringing. Now it drives me crazy that I've never heard, will never hear actual silence. That I can friggin' rumble my ears. I didn't even know how to describe it before Reddit. Thanks r/rumble symbol. That's, no. Everyone can do that, surely? I swear to God, if that's my superpower I'm going to be mega pissed. Bartic sneeze reflex. I took it for granted that the sun makes you sneeze until I started to realize no one else was sneezing with me. My penis falls asleep like your arm or leg might sometimes if I'm sitting in a certain position for too long. The reverse stranger, where you get to pretend like you're jacking off someone else. Sometimes this can happen to your vagina if you're sitting in a weird position. I didn't realize homemade cookies weren't supposed to be black on the bottom until I started baking for myself. My mother had problems with remembering when she'd put a batch of cookies in the oven. We had timers. I have no idea why she never used them, so nearly every batch of cookies we made either had to have the bottom scraped off or just eaten with the charred bits still attached. I thought the only way to get an unburnt cookie was to buy them from the store. When I was a kid, my mom would always make a vegetarian lasagna and I would hate eating it. She said that's just how you make lasagna and never spoke about it again. Didn't know that you could make it with meat until I went to a friend's house and he was so stoked about having lasagna. When I saw that there was no spinach, broccoli, squash, etc. and that there was all this delicious meat and cheese, oh man. Devoured it. 10-year-old me never felt so betrayed. I cry when I poop. I thought everybody did. Nope. Led to an extremely awkward series of conversations with my best friend. Edit. No, I'm not sad. No, it doesn't hurt. Yes, I wept for your shuts. I'm not sure when I realized the normal way for a guy to masturbate, but by then I had been masturbating by aggressively humping stuff for too long to switch to the normal way of doing it. It makes sexy Skyping with my GF a bit awkward. I thought everybody's lips, mouth, and throat tingled when they ate citrus. Believed this until I was 21. Turns out I just have an allergy. I enjoy the tingling sensation, though, which makes me like oranges even more.